Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Last week I began by setting up our latest series of messages by asking you just to think about how often have you said those words as part of the Lord's Prayer, and to think about how often you've opened yourself up to the idea of actually playing your part in carrying His will out, in doing the good work. Last week we looked at how Nehemiah, a normal bloke who'd seen his fellow countrymen experience some really, really difficult times in a period of time that's documented in the Old Testament. We saw how he opened himself up to play his part. And we looked at three things he did, and three things that we can still do today if we see a need or an issue that we believe God might be able to use us to help out with. The first thing was to open up and to be honest about how we feel about the need that requires God's help. Nehemiah was so heartbroken by what he'd seen going on that he physically sat down and cried. Secondly, he prayed. He kneeled down before God, didn't he? Can I be honest with you just for a second and say I can't remember the last time that I kneeled down before God and prayed with anywhere near the intensity that Nehemiah did. I mean, primarily because I don't think I'd actually be able to get up again, but also maybe because my idea of what God can take on for me is too limited. And thirdly, he was prepared to stand up and act, and that's what we're going to look at in more detail today. When we're at a point that we see something that needs doing for God, how do we have the courage to take those first steps? And remember, we're not always talking about taking on like a massive project, to end the curse of debt in our village or the scourge of addiction or anything like that. It could be something closer to home, a small issue that needs addressing. But what can we learn from Nehemiah to help us move forward and closer to God's will? We'll learn together with Craig from Life Church in America next.